Hey guys, and welcome to the live stream. This is the special Crystal Palace, aka ComicBase 2021 live stream. Welcome. I'm glad you guys are all here. Let me just double check the chat and make sure everything is streaming okay, and then we will get the show on the road. Give me just a second to get my windows arranged in the proper order. Okay, looks pretty good. Gregory says, "Let me get the chat messages to show up here." Says, "Do you ever think you'd be starting a Wednesday live stream simultaneously with halftime of regular season NFL game?" No freaking way. All right. All right. And Okay. And Andre has. I'm guessing that's a can't install. Andre's having an issue. Let's chat afterwards, and we'll take it from there. I'm gonna guess just from the message you're looking at the whole thing. Try and install it to a different drive. I think probably what you've got going on there is you are installing it someplace it really doesn't want to be right now. Try just going to the default location and see if you don't have better luck on that one. Before we get into the esoteric on the whole thing, just a couple rules for live stream for everyone who's coming in late to this whole thing. Sorry, I've got a little focal point right below my camera to give me something to stare at, as instead of just staring at my own monitor or something. But anyway, so to anyone who has not come to the live stream before, and we got some new viewers here, so thank you, welcome. If you have questions, please post them in the chat, and I will take as many of them as I possibly can. I'm going to be spending a lot of the time today talking about Crystal Palace, running people through what's new in the whole thing, and hopefully showing off some neat stuff that people didn't know it could do. I will try to answer questions and stuff like that. If the questions get super weird and esoteric, we'll probably take them offline with support. But because there's always something new that's going on with people's machines or whatever else, and we'll answer the easy ones when we can. We'll take the other ones offline. Okay. Well, anyway, that's about it. Let me double check it right here. Okay, John P says, download 2021 on Monday, took 45 minutes to install, slowest in a while. So, wouldn't be surprised. So so if you guys don't know this yet, we are running our 2021 launch simultaneous with our Black Friday sale, which was the worst timing ever. Honestly, we couldn't change the calendar around, and Black Friday takes place on a certain day and time, and we would really have preferred to be a week one way or the other on the whole thing, but things did not line up in this wonderful COVID year of ours to have that happen. So everything kind of crashed in right at 2020, at Black Friday of 2020. As a result, what happens whenever we run our sales is that everyone and their brother will go and get the thing, download all the Blu-ray pictures, everything else all at once. And our poor little servers, which have actually gotten buffed up quite a bit since, over the course of the year. The one time I've seen them really struggling with the load was on Monday, especially in the afternoon, where it seems like there's a certain number of multi-gigabyte downloads that they can take at the same time before things just start getting slow. I did check before the show, though. It did seem like things were back to normal, so hopefully you guys won't have any trouble, and everything else should be fine. So, here we are. First of all, I want to take news. Number one news is, of course, the Black Friday sale, which ironically launched mostly right around midnight on Black Friday, so more like Black Saturday. We extended it out through Wednesday of this week because we didn't want people to not have a chance to see the live stream, see the new stuff, and then be like, "Oh, well, that sounds great. I really wish I'd bought it, Pete, because your sale just ended." So we are giving you an extra couple of hours here, where the thing is going to shut down whatever shutdowns very forcefully on midnight. That's Central Time, by the way, not Pacific. That's midnight Central Time tonight. So you still have a few hours to get it, at some pretty great discounts. Before then. I don't know. I'll just be honest. We usually run a Christmas sale sometime around the Christmas. If you're, so if for whatever reason, you have no money or whatever else, there may be a chance to save something, later on. But, terms and everything change around. We have a long-standing pattern of doing certain specials during our sales, which happen a couple times a year usually. One of them is that you could usually get the archive edition for $99.95 as an upgrade from any Pro or or older version of the archive, which saves you like 30% off the whole thing. That's really the star of the show. This year there's a new star. There's a 4K archive edition, which is kind of like the successor to the old Blu-ray edition. The main features of this one are that you can not only get the higher quality covers on delivered to you on Blu-ray the first time, but the downloading of everything you do from there on out also happens in 4K if we have a 4K image available. So all through the year you'll be getting the better covers delivered to you automatically as you download, or you have Sidekick download the images for you. So, and we also, because we are no longer shipping updates on disc 4 times a year because the downloading is so much more buff than it was before. That actually we were able to knock a lot of, because it takes a lot of our cost off the product, we were able to knock a lot off the price of that one. So during the sale, you can get that one for $129.90. It's I think sale the list price is $349.95. If you've got any old version of Pro or any old version of Archive, that one is just $129 during the sale. So I'd say the Archive and the 4K Archive are the two absolute stars, but you can save money on anything we do. And also, if you're looking to get a barcode scanner at any point during the year, this is a great time to do it because we also knock a ton of money off that one, especially if you buy it with the program. So, big news item is that one is going on right now. Like I say, it's definitely over at midnight. There may be something around Christmas time. Usually is. That's usually the only time during the whole year that you can count on us doing some kind of sale. The future is still the future, though. I'm not sure what price points we'll be setting everything at in the next one because we do have some different prices to play with. That $99.95 archive thing, man, we've been holding on to that one for 10 years, and let's face it, the price of everything is not what the price was 10 years ago. So I'm not saying that you're going to see the same deals again. Not saying you're not, but I'm not saying you will. So if you are thinking of jumping in, now's a good time. And after that, if you do miss anything we do at Christmas, typically it's a really, really long wait until you see anything on sale again after that one. So if you are thinking of it at all, I would encourage you, now is a great time to jump in. Okay, with all that said, so that is news number one. News number two, obviously, is that we've released ComicBase 2021. It was codenamed Crystal Palace for no obvious reason, other than, we have codenames for most of our products, and as they're in development, so we can talk about them amongst ourselves. And sometimes they slip, long enough in when they ship that, if we were to call it ComicBase 2021, it shipped in 2022, we would feel badly. So Crystal Palace is what we've been working on for the last 6 months, very hard, and in the last couple months, like around the clock. Which is why if I look way less jaggy now than I did 2 weeks ago at the live stream, that is why, because I've actually had sleep between now and then. So the main features of ComicBase 2021 Crystal Palace. All right, there's a couple things. Number one, there's always the content bump, right? So there's always that we've added a jillion more things during the year, including new pictures and so forth. That is a big process for us. It's one of the things we actually have to spend about a solid week doing nothing but prepping and compressing and manipulating image files because we have so darn many of them at this point. There are now 670,000 plus in the current archive edition. The same thing goes with the Blu-ray Archive Edition. We say there are tens of thousands. The answer is there are a lot more than tens of thousands, but tens of thousands is our safe number. You could assume that we're pretty close to adding another digit to when we say that are actually in 4K full res, it's called ultra high definition, which is to say that they're scanned at something like 3840 wide, if that dimension applies, and 2160 high or something like that. But basically, they're about 4 times the number of pixels of your typical picture that is in your archive edition. And the other thing that's really nice about that one is if you have a 4K monitor, they just look fantastic. So that is a nice thing if you've got that going on. So main features. So like I say, we've done a lot of content. The pictures, obviously, a big deal with both archive editions. The Pro guys, they got, I think it's added almost 10,000 pictures just baseline to the Pro because we had so many titles. Pro users typically get one picture per title. It's there just like in a price guide to help you figure out which Justice League series we're talking about when we see Justice League 3rd series, so we'll show you the picture of number 1. We won't show you a picture of every issue of the Justice League. That's what the archive does. But even then, we are covering so very many titles right now. I believe it's close to 60,000 pictures in the Pro editions. The Express is slightly less because the Express installs as a single file. But even then, I want to say it's well over 11,000 cover images that come along with that one, and the free obviously got a little bump as well, but the free is the free. So that one doesn't get upgrades and things like that like all the paid editions do, which is one of the main differences between those. All right, let me do a quick check here of the chat, make sure that everything is rolling okay. I think we're doing okay. I'm just seeing weird flickering on the monitor. It's distracting me, so bear with me, guys. Okay, so we have, I believe, we've now it's just shy of 900,000 comics in the current database. I don't have anything really cool to make 900,000 sound like anything other than what it is, a really large bleeping number. We used to do crazy things like saying, well, if you took all the comics that were in ComicBase and you laid them out in, if they were in real format and you just used them as wallpaper, that you could wallpaper, 3 sides of the Empire State Building up to whatever floor it was, the top of it. I haven't done the weird math required to figure out what you could do with another, 50,000 over what we launched with last year. But it is just a stupidly large number of comics. And more importantly, we're also adding just a crazy number every bloody week. I want to say last week we added something like 3,500 new items of all sorts, including everything from old issues of Scientific American from the 1800s, which is really cool, by the way, to, comics that shipped last week, which is the normal thing, as well as I want to say there's something like over 6,500 price and content updates that happen. It's just been an absolute, fire hose worth of content that's been hitting the database lately, and we've had to really up our game in terms of just even keeping up with it. So that's something that happens every week, and that's just the content story. So, but let's talk, this time about features. So, and let me just do a quick check. Yes, excellent. All right, so in terms of new features, Crystal Palace, or ComicBase 2021, is focused on kind of a couple of different themes. The main theme is we wanted to add more in the way of reporting and collection tracking. So to that end, we've done a lot of things involving, really letting you track your comics as an investment. Not just, knowing, hey, I've added them all the boxes in, and, the program says it's worth, $50,000. Well, okay, now what we'll do is we'll say it's worth $50,000 right now, but next month, if it's $51,000, you see where it's going, or you see, how trends are playing out. We're doing a lot more, for instance, when we push the updates every week, to let you know not just what changed in a big long list of 6,000 items that changed prices, but to say, look, let's pull out the things that went up the most and went down the most in terms of value by percentage, value by price, and so forth. Kind of show you the top gainers and losers. We also make a big deal now about highlighting your own collection and how it's changing both in terms of its value, in terms of its number of comics, for people especially who acquire a lot of comics or sell a lot of comic books on Atomic Avenue or other places. So you can kind of see how your investment is playing out over time. And we've also added graphing to make that a little bit more visible. Along the same idea of these things, we've added a couple of new reports, included a wanted list report by popular demand. We've done a little bit more active work in terms of mapping in foreign currencies to inform some of the reporting and so forth. But basically just a lot of things along those levels. So I'm going to show you a few things. Hopefully I'll hit a couple things that people didn't know how to do before and give you a little bit of a tour right now. So bear with me just a moment, and I'm going to flip over screens and let's get this rolling. So over to screen number 2, which I have a beautiful video that somebody worked up for us here, but I'm going to replace it with a my copy of ComicBase. All right, let's get ComicBase open on that screen. Where are we at here? Oh, okay. All right, so first thing I want to do is let me show you, because frankly it's, well, no, I'll get to this one in a different way. All right, so this is, and I had it on a much bigger monitor, so bear with me just a moment while I size it over to this one. All right, so this, to anyone who hasn't followed this one before, this is my live stream copy of my database. It's a little bit like my real collection, except that it has certain fantasy football elements in it, like, let's pretend I owned a copy of Action Number 1, which I don't. So, when you see numbers in this whole thing, take them with a grain of salt in terms of, like, the actual value, because, while we do have customers who do have collections like this, I am not actually one of them. All right. Anyway, so first thing I do, you might want to notice, and this is just coming at the thing from a very strange place, is one of the traditions when you use ComicBase is to do things like say, all right, let's check for the updates. And this is going to look very familiar. I mean, it says, well, all right, let's, is the new content available or not? All right, I'm going to get this one rolling in the background, and I'm going to talk over it. But I also want to talk a little bit about some of the little fine points of updates for anyone who didn't know these things. When there's an update, and there's an update every week, with the exception of Christmas, I believe, and sometimes Comic-Con, if we're exhibiting, those are the only 2 weeks that we don't have an update pretty much every Thursday night. So what happens during that time on Thursday is we'll have all our editors will have gathered together all the many corrections and issue submissions and new comics and new listings, everything that we have acquired. We buy comics like a medium-sized comic store. Everything we have done, in terms of our own indexing, all gets rolled into one big update that says, here's everything that's new this week. Along with that, we also crunch the market pricing on something like, we're actually on the high side of 2.1 million comic prices every week, where we just take the market and we kind of run a rolling average on, what is a given comic book going for on the market, what are people listing at, and so forth. That information largely taken from Atomic Avenue and Heritage Auctions, although occasionally when there's a really big note on an alternate auction site such as Comic Connector, that'll also get plugged into the mix. So all that gets rolled up into the weekly update. Now, if you want to, you can have this automatically updated for you with a program that comes with ComicBase called Sidekick. But if you want to do it manually, you would go up under the internet menu, just like I did here, and you say, check for updates. It would say, okay, there's an update available. You got a couple choices. Do you want to update your guide prices? That's probably why a lot of you bought the program, so by default, that's what you would do. On the other hand, if you're, say, an independent comic seller, you have very firm ideas about your own pricing, go ahead and click down here and leave it alone. The next section, and if you're getting ComicBase new, this is all going to be unchecked by default, is to whether or not you want to allow corrections to existing cover dates, creator credits, series info descriptions, and so forth. The idea here is if we once upon a time thought that, say Mark Waid had written issue number 53 of Impulse, but it turned out that it was a special guest, writer appearance by Neil Gaiman or something. This lets us, correct the previous data. On the other hand, if you, again, have very firm feelings that, you'd like your data left exactly the way it was, go ahead and leave them unchecked, and we won't make any corrections to your existing data. That said, they're unchecked by default, not because we think that's a great setting for it, but because it's the safest setting, right? We're not changing anything if you don't have those checked. I personally would recommend everyone check all of them. And I would also say the same thing down here, these items down at the bottom where you'd say remove obsolete series if they have no items in stock, remove obsolete items if they have not listed as being stock. These first two right here, I would also suggest check those when you are using the program. What the first one does, it says, all right, let's say there was a new, series of Teen Titans, but they'd called it, Teen Titans Assault on Bloodhaven. That's the way it was, originally pitched at, say, Diamond Comic Distribution and so forth. And so we would then have listed as, all right, DC says they'll be shipping in, Teen Titans Assault on Bloodhaven #1, in April. April comes around, we find out that someone changed their mind over DC. They just called it New Teen Titans, and that just becomes New Teen Titans, the 4th series. Assault on Bloodhaven apparently just being the first storyline or something. What we're going to do at that point is we'll take our New Teen Titans Assault on Bloodhaven title, change it around to be New Teen Titans 4th series, and you'll get the new title in your database when you update. The problem is if you don't have this checked, it won't get rid of the old obsolete one that they, the Assault on Bloodhaven that they initially solicited under. So I would, and the same thing goes for individual issues. Sometimes people will say that there will be an issue number 5 of a series that never ships. Sometimes they say I'm going to have an A, B, and C cover, and it turns out when they ship it, there's just the regular cover, or things like that. I would suggest, let us remove any of the stuff that's junk unless you've got inventory, listed in it. The idea here is if you check it, even if you've put down quantity and stock on any of those things, we're not going to delete the title. No way. No way are we throwing out your data, no matter what you do. All that'll happen in the end is that'll just become a title that's a bit of an orphan, and there's different things, like when you go to, say, sell on Atomic Avenue, it'll tell you, hey, this isn't a title we recognize, you might want to double check it. But in general, I would suggest when you're downloading updates, go ahead and allow us to make corrections to existing stuff here. Go ahead and allow us to remove obsolete series, remove obsolete items. Whether or not you want to remove mature titles from your database, that's a new feature that got added in the last few months. That's purely up to you. Yeah, I'm an adult. I don't mind mature titles, so I go ahead and leave those in. But if you have kids around, or whatever reason you want to not have anything like that in your database, go ahead and click that, and it'll pull them all out, and they won't come back in the update, which is different than before. All right, if you've got the archive edition, right here there's a thing to say automatically download the pictures for new versions. Typically this would be checked for you guys. I don't have it checked because I'm sitting here at ComicBase Central. We don't download our own stuff typically unless we're testing something. But I would say if you guys, I would go ahead and definitely go ahead and check to download it. Typically I would also say go ahead and replace the existing pictures, and replace whether or not you want to choose preliminary concept art, that's up to you as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off right now. And what it's going to do is I'm just going to leave this running, and I'm going to go check the chat, answer a few other questions. I'm going to let this run in the background while we talk about something else, because I want to show you what happens after it's done, and hopefully it won't embarrass me by taking a really long time. All right, so anyway, so let me go ahead and take a couple questions in the chat first. Looks like you guys have been really quiet. But apparently the do not disturb on my phone is ignoring me, so excuse me just a moment. Alright. So, if you guys didn't get this, it's been a slightly chaotic week for me, and one of the things I did not do is run my typical checklist before the show to turn off all the things that might ever interrupt the show while I'm doing it. So another tradition we have going on here at the live stream is we try always to have some kind of galling and very embarrassing technical thing happen during the show, just to keep us humble, because as my parents would have said, stay humble. In your case, it'll come in useful. Anyway, so let's go ahead here. All right, so Brian says, not all of us need a new software version every year. Happy to purchase comic content updates, new software every 3 years, everything of that kind of flexibility. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a real thing, but I'd be kidding you if I told you I could do it for you any cheaper than we're doing it. So the deal with the subscription is this. Basically, we got to pay people. And we got to pay me, and we got to keep the whole lights on and all this other fabulous grandeur you see behind us. To do that, what we do is we have a certain staff that are working all the time, and we're trying to make new versions of new content. We do program tweaks 24/7, etc., and we put that all out for you as part of your update subscription. So the idea behind the program and the update subscription is when we sell you the program the first time, it's let's say it's the pro version, it's going to be $150. The update, on the other hand, is going to be somewhere around $50. It tends to be right around a third of the original price. And what it really kind of works out to is, either $1 or $2 a week, depending on which version you're working on. And that, like I said, keeps the lights on. Now, there's certainly interest in the world for saying, well, hey, I don't need a new program, I just need new content. Couldn't I get that, just that? Well, yeah, I could, except I'd have to charge you exactly the same amount of money, because it's this really kind of the same amount of work to kind of keep it all going. And the other problem we'd have there is if I had people who I knew out there in the world had versions that were like 3 or 4 years old that were still trying to update content, there's a lot of stuff in our back end that would get really, really complicated for us to manage, just in terms of keeping the whole thing together. So what we've done here is we've made it so that every year we basically we give you the next year's program for free, because it's part of that same subscription that paid for your content every week. And it also, especially like this time out with this one, it's a forced upgrade from the old version. So when you went to check for updates last week, for instance, you probably noticed that it said, hey, this ComicBase 2021 is here. Click here to download it. Just the same way that beforehand you would have said, like, hey, version 20.0.4 is here. Click here to download it. typically when we force a download like that, it means we've changed something about our format, about the way that the content works. And so in order to make sure everyone is able to digest the new format, we need to make sure you're all using the same program. Well, this is the first time ever we've actually had the download process be smooth enough that we could say, hey, instead of saying, hey, ComicBase 2021 is here, there's a registered serial number for you in your account. At some point, you should really download it. And then dealing with customers for the next 6 months saying, well, you know, I've never gotten around to downloading the new version. We actually were able to make it so it actually downloads just like a regular update. And so we were able to, you know, make that part of the regular update cycle, and it's not, for most people, a different download. So that's something that I'm really glad we did this year. But yeah, like I said, it's we kind of need to lock the program and the content together just for practicality purposes. But then the other thing, like I say, a lot of times when people ask that question, the underlying question really is, hey, you know, isn't there a way I could get the content for cheaper? Now, I will give you one pro tip. If you really are like super budget conscious and all you really need is new pricing, but you want to do the new pricing at the least possible amount of money, the pro tip goes like this. And I'm going to say it's a pro tip, which is to say don't everyone use it, because you might be kind of like being penny wise, pound foolish kind of thing if you do this. But let's say that I'm in the situation where I've been using the archive edition, and my updates are usually run me like $99.95. I get them on sale, $129 if I don't, right? Now, I've already got a lot of pictures. Let's say I don't collect a lot of new comic books, so I don't need new cover art, but I still want to know how the prices are changing every year. All right, well, one thing you could do is when you upgrade next time, after you've got the archive edition and you've already got your first set of pictures, you could go ahead and just upgrade to the Pro Edition, which is technically a downgrade. It's not going to suggest it for you when you go on the website and you say renew upgrade. It always pops up a list of things to, hey, we suggest, here's the version we think you're going to want. Here's the version one up from that maybe you'll want if you want to go up the chain. We're, of course, never going to suggest the one that's down the chain. But you can go if all you really want is pricing. And by that, I really do mean pricing. You could go from an archive to a pro, and that would typically cost you like $50 as an upgrade just to get pricing. Now, along with that, though, you would lose the ability to download new covers. So think about that pretty carefully before you do that route. Because going down to pro, like I say, it might be one of those things that's penny wise, pound foolish, but we do leave it out there on purpose for the folks who, like I say, people are in different, boats, and so sometimes they need different options. So that's an option that you've got if you don't need to get new covers and such. You still have a program that's functionally very, very similar in terms of the features it has. There's only a couple things that the Pro doesn't do that the Archive does. In terms of the program, the main difference when everyone asks me what's the difference between the Pro and the Archive is pictures. The Archive not only has cover reference for every comic we've ever seen, but it also has larger versions of those pictures, as opposed to the smaller thumbnails that come with the Pro, Express, and free editions. But anyway, so like I say, if you are looking to save a few bucks, that's a way to go. But as to why we don't separate the content in the program anymore, ever since we did ComicBase 10, it was pretty clear to us when we kind of signed on to start doing content updates on a weekly basis that there was no way we couldn't that we could let the program and the content get very far out of sync from each other. We'd never be able to deliver it in all the 15 kinds of formats that we'd be supporting over the years. By the way, one thing that's worth noting, if you have ComicBase 2017 or earlier, officially everyone with that, their subscription should have expired either last week or the week before or so forth. So we are actually going to be turning off 2017 and below updates on the website. So if somehow you magically have a subscription for 2017 that got extended somehow, we don't think that's possible. But if somehow that happened to you and you want to keep using 2017, contact us and we'll help you get over to 2020, because there won't be any updates for the 2017 and below series that are downloadable in any format, just so you know. And that's one of those things that kind of keeps things running on our back end. All right, let's see here. So, more checkboxes. Yes, there are more checkboxes. Not quite sure if I follow all of that, but that's cool. Okay, so the update got done. And here's what it did. Now, this is my Livestream database. So, oh, by the way, let me switch over to the right camera. Okay. So this is my Livestream database. And like I say, this is not my comics. You know, well, I mean, knock the million off the front, and you're pretty close to where my comics are at. But anyway, basically, just as a result of price changes in the last, week or a couple days, my comics in this collection gained $84.50. There are no differences to the number of items in my thing. If I were to do this on my personal comic collection, you'd see that, I'd sold a bunch of things, and so I have 78 less comics than I did, a couple days ago. I, picked up a couple new magazines. I picked up a couple new books. You see those kind of deltas right there. You'd see the value deltas from the different periods right there and so forth. All right. What else can we see about this whole thing? Well, there's a new thing over here called a collection value graph. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to turn off a couple things on here just to make this a little bit more legible. So what this is going to do is you can say, for instance, do you want to show you my whole collection, just my books, just my comics, just my magazines, etc. I can pick the range that I'm reporting between and so forth. And all these different points that come up here are telling me what was my collection worth at these different points. Same thing goes for, like, what was the cost and what was the number of items. I'm going to turn off the value and the cost right now, just so the y-axis here switches to something a little bit more normal, so it's easier to see the change in the items. Now, this is my Livestream database. If you actually saw my real database, it's all over the place because I both buy and sell, new comics. We acquire new comic books as part of the database. They get sold on Atomic Avenue, so if things are working very well on Atomic Avenue, we're really selling a lot, you see my collection steadily go down like this. If you see that, for some reason I'm picking up, other people's collections, or I'm doing some kind of other investment of mine, you'll see it going up like that. So these are the kind of graphs that you can go and show your wife to say, no, honey, I don't have a problem, and so forth. Look, my stuff is actually worth some money, etc. And you can kind of track how it's doing over time. You'll see, like, for instance, this humongous spike in value between here and here. For it was 1 week where I dropped out, I believe, the Action Comics #1 that I decided I wanted to have in this demo database here, and threw it through the floor. Actually, I might have for that week. I might have actually zeroed all the quantities on the whole collection temporarily. But anyway, that's one of the new graphs we've got going on here. You get to that a couple different ways. You get to it as part of this update dashboard that happens right when you are first downloading any update. And by the way, this is another thing. If I go ahead and I say check for updates, and I just updated this database so there's no new updates, it used to just kind of tell you, hey buddy, you already updated. Now it'll say, hey, you've updated, and here's all those same stats that I just showed you. So one thing is a bit of a fine point is, if I were to go and add add 50 new books on the whole thing, it would have remembered that the last time I downloaded an update, I had 60,400 comic books in here, and now it would say, and now you've got plus 50, you have that many more. But the value changes and things like that, remember, they're all keyed off of the last time you downloaded a content update. So in case you start getting deep into the stats here and you're wondering, wait a minute, I went and I adjusted 6 prices to be further backward. Why is it showing things the way it is? Remember that this is like a snapshot in time right now. This is what the last update gave me. All right, what else can I see on the whole thing? Well, another thing that's kind of cool is I can see a top gainers and losers report. All right, so I'm going to go here, and forgive me a moment, my screen's just a little goofy because I'm dragging it between the monitors, a couple different resolutions, and this isn't perfect. Actually, let me go ahead. I'm going to, instead of apologizing for this, I'm going to just fix my issue over on my main screen so I don't need to constantly be mucking between this. Let's see here. Change my main screen to be 100% instead of 150%. Because I have the thing you guys aren't seeing is there's actually 2 other monitors involved in this whole show, and the one that I can show you guys is a smaller monitor than the 4K monitor that's sitting right on my desktop. So let me go ahead and just launch ComicBase again. And if I've got it at 100%, then I shouldn't have weird scaling issues as I slide things between monitors. That's a little bit more normal. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go back, because I just updated this guy. It should pop straight back to the update dashboard. All right, let's go and bring that on. All right, so let's go ahead and see some of our new stuff. All right, so here's the top gainers and losers report. This is brand new. What this is it's a report either of, for all the comics in the world or the comics I own, and you can choose them. It says, all right, do you want to see, the things that gained a lot in value? Do you want to see the things that lost a lot in value? Do you want to see the biggest gainers by percentage, biggest losers by percentage, and so forth? You can choose whether you have cover items, so forth, and you can decide how deep into the weeds you feel like going in terms of all the things. I have not looked at this one, so this is absolute demo death. Let's go ahead and try this live, because what could go wrong when demoing something live? All right. So it takes a second, repairs the report, brings it up on, of course, not the monitor you guys are looking at, so let's bring it up on the right monitor. And let's have a look at what changed very much in this last week. Green Lantern 5th series took a humongous jump. This is by value, from $3.25 to $16, gaining 392%. Daredevil, Tomb of Dracula, so forth, some modest things going on here. I'm going to say, all things considered, this is actually a pretty slow week for the values on all things. Let's page down to some other things, find some other things of interest. By percentage change. Oh, and by the way, I did a report of just the comics I have in this database. This isn't like every comic book in the world. If I want to see every comic book in the world and how it changed, I would have chosen the opposite option for the report of, do I want to print on... I chose to say, show me the report of my owned comics as opposed to the report of all comics. If I did that, then I'd find out what are the big overall market trends. All right, so, where did I make my money in my collection this week? Well, that Green Lantern 36 I had right now, that's clearly my big winner with 392%, although, my second printing of Eddie Campbell's Bacchus, that's a solid growth here, 115%, went from $3.25 to $7, etc. Like, you guys, if it was not abundantly clear to you all that, I have a lot of comics, but I don't necessarily have a lot of great comics, and that this actually is more representative of my real collection than you know. I've seen some of you guys out there, we have the guy who is the most comic books, by Guinness in the world is one of our customers. I've seen his collection report, and it's much more impressive than mine. But anyway, all right, enough of that. Where did I lose my money this week? And what I'm doing is I'm paging down to see it. All right, well, my Captain America 100, I lost $25 on that one. Okay, I'll get over it. It's still a $1,000 comic book. That's pretty good. Nothing here has caused me great amounts of concern. Let's have a look down by percentage. And Uncanny X-Men 470. Man, what did we ever do to you? Off by 23%. This is looking like a pretty, not a huge week, all things considered. Nothing that's massively surprising to me one way or another. Just watching my own collection. I often will view this report. This is actually my favoriteest report in the whole world, because I will see things in there every week where I'm like, what the heck happened? Although this may be the one exception to this that I can think of right now. All right, so let's see here. Let me switch back. All right, and it's just checking. Toeswort says, let me switch back. Is that going on in program? No, it's not. Let me switch the key. It says, 2021, the year I finally got my collection order honest. Just upgrade ComicBase 11 Pro to 2021. Wow! I think you win in terms of the most dramatic upgrade. If you're literally coming in from 10 years back, that's stunning. Should I get the scanner purchase from ComicBase back and it still works for the current? If you bought a scanner from us even back in ComicBase, 10 years ago, it's still going to work. The reason for that is I said this before. As far as your computer is concerned, a barcode scanner is nothing more than an overglorified keyboard to your computer. That's why it doesn't need a special driver or anything else when it installs. You never have to insert a disk in order to download the driver or anything like that. It's actually using your keyboard driver to do its thing. The difference is, and the deal on scanners is, as long as they scan all the human readable digits that are present on a comics barcode and don't add or subtract anything else, it's going to work with ComicBase. So yes, the one we sold way back when will still work. That's great. And I believe that one also supports the Coda bar format that we're using on our current ComicBase labels without any alterations whatsoever. But we haven't had any reports of it having any problem running the new software. But yeah, so barcode scanners, unless you're really just brutal to them, they're typically forever. So they're a good investment if you want something that makes your entry much faster. So and they stick around forever, like a good keyboard. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. And all right, Steve said yes. Steve said what I just said, much smoother and faster. So, all right. Let's do some other stuff here with the new version. All right. And by the way, back here in our update dashboard here, this actually the see what's new. It finally gives you a quick way to look at the log files that was not always visible to you in previous versions. I mean, there were log files. If you didn't think to click them right at the word go, to see what's new, this is all the new titles that were added in this 1 week. Here's all the updated titles deleted, all the new books that were added. Wow, there are a lot. New comics that were added. This is a typical week for us. There's just the vast amount of new content that's done. So this is just everything new that kind of went on in your database in 1 week. In previous versions, there was, right when you download an update, it would give you an option, hey, do you want to see the log? And if you didn't think, yeah, I want to see it, there was not a great way to go back there to get it. You had to know where the secret hidden folder was in your computer, which I believe is percent, was it percent app data, percent / human computing / log files / whatever the date was. But you don't need to remember any of that nonsense anymore, because anytime you say check for updates, if there was an update or there isn't an update, you'll always have this button here just to get straight back to the log, and so you can see what happened on different times. Okay, that is the update dashboard. So, and let me get the doubled window out of the way there. Okay, let's talk about some other stuff that's new. All right, so as I mentioned before, when you go to collection statistics, and let it grind on this one for just a minute. Okay. All right. So here is, of course, along with the big number that says, what's my collection worth at the moment, or for that matter, this is what my comic books are worth. This is what the books are worth. This is what the magazines are worth. This is what the whole shebang is worth, right? So along with this, you also can, if you chose anything except entire collection, you can show breakdowns that are appropriate for the type of collectible that you're dealing with. You can also get a graph by whatever that breakdown was, and you can go to see your collection value over time report. That's the same report, so you've got 2 ways to get to that one. It's the same report you saw when you did a check for updates. So you can see, for instance, how my books changed over time. All right, now let's go and look at some of the other reports that we introduced this time out. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go to just the report menu, and let's run through some of these. All right. So a couple things. First of all, we if you just pull it down right here, first thing you'll notice is that your eyes are no longer bleeding when you're looking at the icons for these reports here. So we finally, at a strangely involved amount of effort, tried to figure out what good modern icons would look like for all these ones, as opposed to the ones that we were back and perfectly comfortable on your 8-bit Windows PC, back when we first shipped ComicBase 1.0, and a lot of those icons had been there this whole time unchanged. Anyway, so these ones got a bit of a refresh. So the collection overview. Let's go through some of these reports and what they do. Collection overview, once upon a time, used to be called the title report. It's called collection overview because no one knew what we meant by title report. What it does is it very quickly gives you, and I'm going to choose a handful of titles here so I can do a few things quickly. All right, fine, okay. What it very quickly does is it lets you just have the got it, need it version of your collection. So for instance, here's Eternal Warrior. I own 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, 10, etc. I'm missing the gold version of the 1A, etc., etc. And so this is the tightest possible report I can have, which tells me what have I got, what am I missing, what's it worth, right? So I can bottom line it pretty quickly. Go down here, and this is the one that I always go to when I'm talking about looking at my collection on a phone or a tablet device, because typically what I'm doing at that point is I'm trying to figure out, I'm shopping, right? And so I want to know, hey, which was that issue of Eternal Warriors that was missing? Was it 47, 48, or was it like 37 or 38? I don't remember because it's been too long. And so this lets me shop a little bit more intelligently, and it works beautifully for these kind of small form factors where I don't want to have a 10,000 page report that tells me everything I've got. So if you haven't used it before, highly encourage you, have a look at the collection review, particularly when you're talking about going for using the mobile app or using a mobile device of any sort. All right, let's go back to the reports here. So the collection report is kind of like our default report for other things, which is to say, all right, look, for everything I've got, and I've got too many things here, so I'm just going to narrow it down to those same 11 that I chose before. And what it does is line by line, it gives you all the detail on those guys. All right, I've got 2 copies of Eternal Warrior #1 from Valiant. They're worth $9, you know, and this is what happened in them. And here's a picture of it, etc. Now, this is a lovely report, but I selected a handful of titles, and this thing is already 6 pages long. If I were to do it from my real collection, it's something like 30,000 pages long. It's crazy. Sometimes you just don't need that level of detail. But if you do, like let's say I'm shopping for Golden Age stuff, where it really matters to me a lot, or say variants, I really want to know, you know, was I looking for, you know, the A variant or the B variant or the C variant of a particular thing? When I need the level of detail that this offers me, this is also another great one to have available to you for those situations when you're shopping and you need the detail. The way I would break it down is when you're just trying to say got it, don't got it, collection report's my go-to report every time. When I need the detail level, collection report right here is the one I go to all the time. All right, let's go to some others. Divider labels is exactly what it sounds like. It's that little thing that goes at the top of a title divider. I think I've got one here. Yeah, there we go. Right here. It prints the label that goes on the top of these things, which ought to be in between all your comics if they're sitting in boxes, or frankly, if they're just on a shelf. It just makes life very much easier if you've got these printed out. You just choose, do I print labels from both sides or not? I always do, because that way I can flip the divider label so it's most visible in any direction as my comics fill up or don't, and it just makes everything better in life. By the way, there's an option as you're adding comics to the database with the barcode to have it automatically print divider labels for anything that it sees is new to your collection. I would definitely suggest you look into that as you go to it. All right, identification labels. These ones, and let me find a particular comic. Here we go. All right, sorry, I'm just going to hold this up to the camera. If I flip the camera right here. And I apologize for that. I just realized I've been flipping up to the camera, but you guys were still looking at my screen. This is a title divider label. Apologize for that, guys. I am my own worst, producer. This is a divider label, which I'm going to try very hard to get the camera to focus on, and it probably won't. The idea about these guys is it gives you something that's... Here, I'm just going to preview one of them on the screen so you can see it maybe a little bit better. Let's go ahead and do that the clever way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight a particular issue. I'm going to say print ID labels for it right now. I'm just going to preview that on screen. Yep. All right. So this is what that looks like. And let's see if I can blow that up some. Zoom factor, where are we at here? Okay, there we go. All right, so what this guy does is it prints out, the picture of the whole thing. If you've got a black and white thermal printer, that's obviously going to be not quite as pretty as what you see there, but it's very useful for just figuring out, which variant are you filing and so forth. Gives you, the title in nice big letters, so you know that this is Eternal Warrior, not Eternal Warrior Second Series, not Eternal Warrior Third, so forth. Very easy to file, very easy to pull it later on. Gives you the distinguishing, features of this particular issue. And then this is kind of neat. You can print an individualized barcode for every, item in your database. So whether it had a barcode of its own before or not, this is a barcode that will point directly at the exact issue you've got for this one in your database. Now, this is actually a little different than previous versions of ComicBase. Prior to ComicBase 2020, the barcodes we would print would match anything that was the same condition and same issue number. Now, this one here will go to the exact one. Where this is useful is, for instance, let's say I had 4 different comics that were all in CGC 9.6, and I had printed barcode labels for them all. it would have matched any one of those with the previous labels, but maybe I really want to track which one, has certain notes on it, which one has certain cost on it, and so forth. This one, the new barcodes over here are very specific. They'll take you straight to the one that you printed the label for. And then finally, here's the condition down in the bottom right-hand corner, so you know what it is. So what's missing here? The price, and that is the difference between this and a price label. Is price label will have a big area over here just devoted to printing the price. Why do I print for myself? Why do I print ID labels, not price labels? Because I don't sell in a shop. If I had a comic shop, I'd be printing price labels for it, and I'd be not having the update change my prices very much. Because, let's say that copy of Cap America 100 that I have, it went from $1,025 last week, and now it's $1,000, because the update changed its price. Well, if I've got it out on my back wall or on the shelves, I don't want to stick a new price on that every single time, a price label on this every single time. So what I'm going to do, for me, because I don't run a retail store, is I'm going to use ID labels where the price will always, it's always going to give the most information that never changes about that issue, and it won't have the one thing that anyone browsing casually to find out the thing will want, but which would involve me printing lots and lots of labels otherwise if I wanted to keep that up to date with a constantly changing database. So that's the difference between those two things. All right, let's go back to the screen here. Let me do a quick check of the chat, see how we're doing. Hey, Pete, I hope your report all have the same ordering. I'm not sure what you mean by that one. Can you give me a little bit more in the chat on that one? I'm sorry, I'm not quite following it. Okay, John asks, what's a good report to make to give to my insurance company? In my experience, the report that insurance companies ask for most of the time is this guy right here. And let me make sure I'm on the right screen. It's the collection statistics right over here. We looked at this one ahead of time. What they will do is, and I'm going to go ahead and break mine down by, let's say by publisher, just for fun. All right. Typically, if I go down here and I preview this report right here, this is what most insurers will look for, because they want to say, look, this is what my, this is how many books I got, this is what it's worth, this is what I paid for it, if that's relevant, this is their market value, this is the asking, done and done. It's a short report. It's like, I include a publisher breakdown, which for me is 29 pages of detail, but this is the one that most will ask for. Now, if I had a high-end Golden Age collection that really was worth 1.2 million, another one that they might ask me for, they might ask me for a collection report. If so, I'm going to give that to them as a digital file. By the way, the way to give anyone a report as a digital file is to go up under the report itself, and let's go ahead and do this with a collection report right now. So here's the collection report. Let's go to those same 11 selected titles that I had, just so it runs very quickly. And what you can do, you can either save it to the web and give them a link to it that way. What I would do, actually, and you could export it as text, that's fine. The way I like to do it is to do a preview of it right here, which shows it like this, so it looks pretty, looks nicely laid out and so forth, exactly the way I want. Then come up here to the top left, the thing that looks like, I don't know what they were thinking when they drew this icon. This is a company called Crystal Reports makes this reporting tool. I think that's my computer with an arrow going to some other place. I think that was the thinking behind this squiggly little icon in the upper left here. But I'm going to click the export icon, at which point I can say, do I want to save it? And the one I'm going to choose is as a PDF, which is an Acrobat file. And save it as a desktop file. Let's go ahead and just give it a name like, Pete's Collection Report, save as .pdf. It's completed. I'm going to go over to my computer now. Let me go ahead and make this window a little bit smaller so we can see what I'm doing. All right. There's the file. I double click it, and there's the report from my insurance guy. Right? And the nice thing about this one is I spent no money on ink and paper just now. I can just email him this report. He's good to go. All right. This is a great segue for another new one we've got going on here. So under the report here, another one we've heard asked for is most valuable items, right? So let's say I had this Golden Age, collection that I tend to have, right? So what I could do is I could say, all right, and people say things, show me your 100 most valuable comics, right? And I'm going to say, nah, I don't want you to see my cost. That's my business, not yours. All right, so let's go ahead and preview this guy now. All right, now, in my imagination, I own a Batman #1 and Action Comics 13. I guess I did get rid of the Action one. I think I've now replaced it with a bunch of fantasy early Batman. But yes, it would say things like, here I've got, these incredibly valuable comic books. If I had grading notes, to go along with them, it would tell the exact grading defects or so forth on the whole thing, and continue on down to, to here. And I think somewhere along here you'll actually hit comic books I really do own. But anyway, that's the most valuable items report. This is another great one to go ahead and export, send off to your insurer, and he will have the basis for your insurance rider. More than that, typically you're just burying your insurance guy under paper, and there's not a lot of side. All right, Andre says, can we still choose the size of the picture in the main windows? I'm going to answer both ends of what I think that question might have been. So the size of the picture, couple of ways to go about it. First of all, if you drag right here in the middle, there's a little divider line. You'll see my cursor changes a little bit right when I get to that point right here. If I drag that down, picture gets big, and if I drag it up, picture gets very small. And what you can do, just anytime you want, is just change where you want that split point to be. Just pick what is comfortable to you, and it'll do it automatically. That's one way, if that's what you were thinking of, that you can do that. As if you have the archive edition, for instance, you might also be able to say, all right, well, yeah, I've got the pictures here. I can go, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. This is, no matter what edition of ComicBase you've got at all, you can go up under here and you can change the grid cover icon size. So this is the grid view. There's also an album view. If you can change the grid cover icon size from 48 to anything you like. You can go, you can go crazy big, like 256, which will take a second. Again, there you go. Or you can go crazy small, or even lose it entirely. So here it is with 16 pixel icons. I would say that that's a little too small for me to get anything out of. So I'm going to go ahead and change that guy to go back to the standard that it was, because I find 48 is a pretty good size for me. But yes, you can change it there, and that's done under the view menu. Finally, the thing I was jumping. One of the problems with chat over the computer is you're always guessing what the other guy really means when he says something. It's hard to ask clarifying questions. If you have the archive edition, anytime I want to see the big version of any particular picture, just click on it. It'll go full screen if it's able to, and be able to see all the detail on it. So, and then click it again, that makes it go away. All right, so that's lots of different ways to change the pictures in the main window. Okay, and Steve says, which picture are you referring to? Yes, got it. All right, hopefully we've shotgun approached that question enough, and we hopefully somewhere along the line hit what you're looking for. All right, let's go back and see a couple more reports, and then I'm going to probably take up more questions, and then we're getting to about time, so I'm going to try to wrap it. All right, so other things we've got going on here. So we talked about the ID labels, and like I say, if you put a price label on it, you've got the price, the price labels. The price list, by the way, is exactly like the collection report, except that it tends not to want to show the costs involved with things. It's what you would do if you're saying, look, I'm shopping my collection out to sell it, and here's what I have for sale. Here's what I'd like to get for it. That's unless you're commercial or you're selling your collection, that's not a report I go to a lot. We just looked at the most valuable items report. That's pretty cool. Item checklists. This one's worth talking about just for a second. And let's go ahead and go to the same 11. All right. The idea on this one is, let's say I want more than just a got it, don't got it report, but so I need some more details, right? So let's say I'm looking for the gold logo flat edition of this one right here. Let me go ahead and bump the size of this so it's a little easier to see. All right, so let's say I've got the gold logo flat edition of Eternal Warrior 1A. What's this one going to be worth, right? Because apparently there was an embossed version and a flat edition. Wow, stuff I'm learning about Eternal Warrior. I thought I knew it all, but apparently not. Anyway, critically, this has a couple things going on. First of all, it's going to show me a picture of it, useful when I'm filling out things. It gives me a blank to write in, whatever I paid for it if I'm at a show or something, so I can, mark out that, oh yeah, I got that one, it's good. But it gives me kind of like my strike price. Like, what am I looking to pay for it in terms of its value? So, if Gus is selling me a gold, Eternal Warrior number 1A and he wants $30 for it, hey, that's a pretty good deal. If he wants $300 for it, I'd be like, hey, maybe not so fast. So that's why it's useful to have this stuff. And also, frankly, if someone's trying to tell me the difference between the 1A and the 1 gold, without this little note here, I wouldn't know. So yeah, this is a useful report when you need this kind of level of specificity and detail. All right, that said, I tend not to use that report a lot. The reason primarily because it gets to be very long. Just like the collection report, when you are talking about like your whole collection, and you want to say, well, what things am I missing along the whole line, or what it just gets to be a lot to look at, and you want it paging forever. So I tend to go to the collection overview much more frequently. All right. So all right. So we talked about price list. Talked about price list. We did our top gainers and losers. All right. And the last thing I want to hit there is the wanted list. All right. This one much requested. This was a report that you could do before, but it wasn't that easy to do, and it wasn't laid out the way a lot of people liked it and so forth. This is basically just, hey, look, what am I looking for? In other words, what things have I gone to my collection, highlighted them, and said, this is wanted, right? So there's a wanted setting for every comic book in the database. You can check off whether you want it or not. What things does Pete want? At least the Livestream version of Pete's collection. So here you can say again, do I want to talk about the want things for every title in the database, everything I own, particular titles and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and leave it for all my wants of any sort. I can choose how big the picture size should be and so forth. I can say whether or not I both want it and it's marked, which is another checkbox field you can use to specify things of particular interest to you. Here's the one that's critical on this one, and it defaults to this, but it's good to know. Exclude owned items. So in other words, I've got it marked as wanted, but somewhere along the line I bought it already. And I never went and didn't mark it as no longer wanted. By having this checked here, it takes those out of your way so you don't keep on buying the same darn thing just because you forgot to update your database. All right, so let's have a look at what this looks like. All right. And this is going through every darn thing. All right, and here's a couple missing issues of 0 of 6, some Action Comics. If I'm on my game... Oh, no, this isn't the database for... My real database would have shown all the copies of those Eagle Moss graphic novels we've been talking about forever on the show that I'm still missing, which actually is going to be a pretty small list. But anyway, yeah, so this is the deal, basically, is just a really quick list of just what have I got, what am I missing, and so forth. Now, on the new things here, these guys here, you notice most of these guys have got the ability to export them, save to the web, etc. One or two of them don't, for very specific reasons. So for instance, your most valuable items, you can export it, you can save it to the web, etc. You cannot do that with the top gainers and losers. You'll see the export and the save to web buttons are dimmed there. Why not, right? It's interesting, and remember, by the way, I can always preview that report and save it as a PDF if I want to hold on to it for posterity. The reason you can't export and save it to the web, honestly, is because it's so time sensitive. This is the top gainers and losers for a particular update period, and by next week this report's gone, or at least it's meaningless. It's not the top gainers of this week are not the top gainers of last week, and so forth. So this was something that we didn't felt, without adding a whole lot of new file naming and foo, we didn't think it was something that added a lot to be able to export this guy out and save it automatically to the web, because you're always going to be looking at an update. This might have been from 2 updates ago, for all you know, when you're looking at it. So anyway, I just wanted to note that, I think, is what it really comes down to. All right, let me do a quick check of the chat. I just said me order prints, they were all the same with the screen order. I believe, okay, so if you're talking about the order of printout of, there used to be some reports that printed in alphabetized order, and then there's a more complicated alphabetization order that takes into effect, things like first series, second series, the word "the" it being at the front or the back of it, and so forth. I believe all the reports that anyone called to my attention about are now all doing it in the same order as they're listed in the database. So yes, they should appear in the same order. If they don't, let me know if we missed any. But I do recall that's something that we did in the last go-round. Okay. All right, so let me talk about just a couple of other cool things, and I will take other questions, and we'll take it from there. All right, cool thing number one, which is just, unless you watch this thing or until I get around to recording the tip on it, you're probably never going to know that this thing happens, and yet it's just really neat. All right, remember all during this time, I went and I'd been using, let me go ahead and pull up, say, a collection report, right? It had held on to those 11 titles I selected right at the beginning because I never chose any new ones. It didn't do anything else with them. What else could you do with the same idea? Well, let's say I want to do a find. And I'm going to say, let me find, what's something cool? Now let's say, let's do something like the price is greater than $50,000. All right? And let's go ahead and find all the comic books that are worth more than 50 grand. All right, here we go. Not quite as long a list as I would have thought. All right, so here are some very, very valuable comic books that be really kind of neat. And you know, I'm saying Christmas is coming up. You know, my birthday is not for a while, but if anyone's feeling generous, you know, I'm open. Anyway, so what I can do here is I can highlight all these guys right here, and then if I were to go and go to say something like a, well, first of all, I can go ahead and use do a quick report on these guys right here, and this of course gives me my my quick report just of what I did. But I also can go and say, where are we at here? Report selected titles as, and I can choose a report for them. So I say, give me a collection report of just these guys right here. And then, you know, this is actually that's a terrible idea because I don't own any of these. If I mark them as being in stock, then they would appear on a collection report properly. Otherwise, let me go to an issue checklist of these guys. All right, come on, come to Papa. Where are we at? Item checklist. There we go. All right, so if I do it from those selected guys right there, I believe. Oh no, yeah, that's why it's throwing a hawk and a hairball on it. Is because I'm mixing different types of data. Apologize for that. That also is a terrible idea. All right, let me do something that's a little bit more realistic. Let's say I'm going to go title publisher is Marvel UK. All right, so here's all the Marvel UK titles. All right, I'm going to select them all. I'm going to say report the selected titles as a collection report. So something cool just happened, which is to say, it just automatically selected for my collection report the titles that were on my publisher report. And so now what I've got is a collection report for just Marvel UK. So if I print that out, this is Pete's Marvel UK stuff. Now, let's back that up just for a minute, just so we repeat the steps to get there. All right, I did a find. All right, I chose any kind of field. All right, in this case, I chose a publisher. All right, and let's go ahead and just to prove I'm not gimmicking this one, let's go and make it. Let's pick another. Let's go Dark Horse. All right, and we found 2,448 titles that are Dark Horse. Right, I highlight them all. I right-click. I say, now again, I can do a quick report and get a list of just everything I'm seeing on screen. That we could do in the last version. But now we can also say report the selected titles as, and let's say issue checklist. All right. Boy, is that one not linked up? There may be a bug patch right after this show. Let's go to the collection report. And so what I've got now is a collection report for the 2,448 items that are on the that were Dark Horse comics that are in my collection. Preview this guy, and if I don't blow it up just because there's so darn much data. Oh, this was a bad idea. All right, I do not want to wait for it to go through 2,448 titles. Let me pick something less popular. Publisher is Warren. All right, this should be this should be a little bit more plausible. All right, let me go ahead, get a collection report of the War and titles 27 chosen. Boom, go. And so here is a title report, a collection report of just my Warren comics and so forth. Anyway, you can you can apply those to pretty much any find can now become the basis for any report that takes that kind of data. So that's kind of neat. We slipped in there. It's a weird pro tip, but it's a cool thing to have in the program. I'm glad we were able to do that. All right, so let's see. And I think the last thing I really wanted to cover, and this is going to sound weird and self-serving on the whole thing, but honestly, we're at time for right now. There will be much more to talk about in future versions, but I want to hit this one just because I like it a lot. All right, and that one is, you guys from way back may remember a thing called the ComicBase cover gallery, which let's go ComicBase cover. Actually, sorry, I'm going to go Screensaver. Change Screensaver. If you've got the archive edition, there will be a new Screensaver that will have been installed into your screensavers here. It's called the ComicBase cover gallery. Let's have a look at its settings right now. All right, you can say, do I want to see comics? Do I want to see books? Do I want to see magazines? Do I want to see just everything? You can say whether you ever want mature titles to pop up. You can say how fast it goes. And then I like this one, whether or not you want to show large covers full screen. All right, I would suggest leave this guy on there because then you get kind of this cool effect. And let's go ahead and just let this guy roll. What this guy does, and right now it's probably doing something really cool to the video feed well, it's not too bad right now. But what it's doing right now is it's on all three of my monitors right now, including my the one I'm using for comping titles and things like that, which means I have to turn this off before I show anything else. It's cycling through all the comics that match this whole thing and displaying them on, in just kind of like this cover spread that goes on forever. And it's like I said, with three monitors going on right now, it's really cool looking. A couple things. If you hover the mouse over any individual comic, you can see its its name and so forth. So you can say, well, what is that weird one? Oh, it's the 1D ash can of so forth. If you click it, it obviously stops the screensaver. And the very first time you do this one, if you haven't done a lot of running through your own collection beforehand, it will come up with a limited set of things, but it will actually spin up a task in the background to index more of your pictures for you. So it actually causes ComicBase to preload your pictures faster in case you haven't steered around ComicBase enough times on your own. So if you're using this the very first time and you launch ComicBase on a new computer, you launch it and you only see like 2 titles ever come up, don't worry about it. The next time you launch the same screensaver, it will have gone and figured out all of the other comics that you have issues of and the pictures that are associated with it, and updated your own database, so your own database will load things faster and so forth. Anyway, so that is the ComicBase cover gallery screensaver. Honestly, maybe it's me, I find the darn thing freaking hypnotic, because I'm always seeing something that's like, I didn't know that was there. It's kind of like going through your record collection and trying to remember when you bought that weird song from the New Wave group back in 1988 that you forgot it ever existed. It's like that with the world of comic books for me. Now, one thing I'm going to say, it's an obvious feature, and I didn't put it in here in the first go-around, which is, why isn't there a checkbox for, do you want to show just my comics, just comics I don't have, or everything? It's probably going to come. It's actually slightly hard to do the first time out for the reason I kind of hinted at ahead of time, is that it sets up a condition where, let's say you've got ComicBase on a new machine, you loaded all the pictures in, you're ready to rock and roll, but you haven't actually entered any data yet. At that point, I'm in the ugly situation where your screensaver needs to be able to show you an error message saying, dude, you said only show me my comics, but you don't have any comics entered in your database yet, so I don't know, what am I doing? We got to do something else to handle that one. Honestly, I didn't want anyone to ever have to deal with an error message from a screensaver, because that's the last thing anyone ever wants to do. So we took it out, and that's That's why that's not a feature in this current one. If we think of a really elegant way to handle it so that it falls back and never gives you an error, then we'll probably add that in. Because I think it'd be neat to have a screensaver that only showed, in particular, my comics. But that's something new in the program. I dig it a lot. And like I say, also, unlike the old version of the screensaver that we used to have a million years ago, not only does it work on modern computers and things like that, but it also works on multiple screens. And if you've got multiple screens and watch this thing going, it's a treat, as somebody said in the forums. All right, last thing I want to hit is let's have a quick look at our friend Sidekick. Sidekick learned exactly one new trick this time out, at least one new trick that I can remember. And that is, Sidekick learned about dark mode. So if you guys know about Windows dark mode, it goes like this. So if I say dark mode, there's a new setting in Windows 10. You gotta have the latest version of Windows 10. I think they've only really supported it in the last couple of months. But you can actually say whether or not you want your default Windows mode for just everything to be light or dark, and then you can say for apps, do you want them to be light or dark? So for whatever reason, I said, yeah, I like my Windows light, but I like my apps, dark. The reason I'm doing this right at this moment is, and I'll flip the other camera so you can see it, is because of the lighting in my own office doing this live stream. If I look like this, you can start seeing the reflection of these giant monitors right in my eyes. And if I look to the side or things like that, so you start catching all the reflections of all the light sources that are around me. And the two giant monitors I have right down here are usually just streaming light right in my face. And so if I put my head even slightly like this, you're watching my computer screen, everywhere I go. Having played with enough things on the whole thing, I'm not going to say whether dark mode is for you just, in terms of the comfort of your eyes or not. I'd say go ahead and launch Windows dark mode, see what you think about it. But one thing I do like is, just like you can go ahead and in ComicBase, you can change different themes to be, however you like to see things. So, matter of fact, there is even a theme called Darkness. But I'm just going to go ahead. Right now, we're on the Orange Sphere theme. Let's say I want to go to, I don't know, Shimmer, and let's go ahead and choose the purple version of that. I don't know. I guess let's go for blue. All right. Blue Shimmer, right? That's what we're doing here for our theme. But you can choose different themes for ComicBase itself, and I am interested in having us investigate doing additional dark themes that will, for instance, have lighter text on a darker background. But Sidekick itself, when it comes up, now respects whatever mode you have going on for Windows. So it'll appear either light if you have it in the regular Windows, or dark if you have Windows set to dark mode. And I'm looking forward to carrying over the light and dark versions of ComicBase and all its related apps over to support the new Windows dark modes and so forth. Because among other things, I noticed that when I have Sidekick up, like I'm catching right now, you can see a reflection off of this the monitor I've got right over here. You can catch it in my glasses right now. If I've got this switched down to a darker mode or things like that, even if I just take down, and I go use darker background wallpaper, you'll notice that the reflections are way down, less glare on my eyes. I'm a happier guy. Everything's good. All right, let me do a quick check of the chat. I'm going to say goodbye and then have some beer. Okay. All right, we got some call out, some shout outs for the Screensaver. Sweet. All right, liking it. Let's see. Greg says, here's the weekly PSA. We have a dedicated thread on the ComicBase message boards. We can request topics and demos. Absolutely. All right. And I think we are good to go for now. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate doing this as always. And honestly, I'm looking forward to everything being a little bit more chill in my immediate future. I don't know, sleeping before 2 in the morning, waking up, sometime after 6, just that'd be nice. So I'm looking forward to doing that. We are heading over into the Christmas season, as we said. Just in terms of how things are going, we're going to be doing regular live streams right up until, I think we'll even be doing one the Wednesday of Christmas week. After that, I'll let you know if we're doing one. After that, we may travel, we may see other people and so forth. If I'm going to be gone, we'll let you know. If not, I'll see you here. Anyways, guys.